Welcome to another deep dive, and today we're tackling something I think we can all relate to, overthinking.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's one of those things that can really impact well-being, and we're going to be looking at some really practical advice for managing those thought spirals.
Sounds useful.
Yeah, and what's interesting is our source material for this deep dive actually comes from an English language learning podcast.
Really?
I know, right? You wouldn't think that'd be the first place you'd go to for advice on overthinking.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
But it just goes to show overthinking really is a universal human experience.
You're right, it transcends those cultural and linguistic boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. So in this podcast, we're listening in on a conversation between Marco and Elena, the hosts.
Okay.
And Marco, he's the one who's struggling with overthinking. He's feeling stuck in these thought loops, and it's really affecting him.
I see.
Elena, she starts by just listening to Marco and acknowledging his feelings. And you know, that's such an important first step, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
When you're dealing with any kind of mental challenge, that feeling of being heard and understood is huge.
Yeah, it makes you feel less alone.
Definitely. And it can open the door to actually addressing the issue.
So true.
And Marco's struggles are so relatable. Like, he talks about how he feels like his overthinking is worse than everyone else's.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
And he gets caught up comparing himself to these seemingly perfect lives that people portray on social media.
The comparison trap.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
Classic overthinking fuel.
It is, and social media is often just a carefully curated highlight reel. It's not real life.
Right. It's like an airbrush version of reality.
Exactly, and Elena wisely points this out to Marco.
Yeah. She reminds him and us, really, that we're only seeing a snapshot, not the whole picture.
It's so easy to forget that when you're scrolling through those perfect feeds.
It is. And Elena's advice is to really focus on your own individual journey and what brings you personal satisfaction. Don't get caught up in the comparison game.
Great advice.
But Marco's overthinking goes beyond just social media comparisons. He also gets stuck dwelling on past mistakes and worrying about the future.
Oh, those are big ones for sure.
Like huge triggers for overthinking.
Yeah, it's that feeling of being trapped by the past and anxious about the future.
Unable to let go of what's already happened and unable to control what might happen.
It's like you're stuck in this mental tug of war.
Yeah. And that's where having some practical strategies can really make a difference.
Absolutely. And Elena, she offers some great ones, starting with identifying your personal triggers.
Like, what are those specific situations, thoughts, or feelings that tend to send you down that overthinking rabbit hole?
Exactly. It's like figuring out the recipe for your own overthinking. What are the ingredients?
And this is where things get really interesting for you, dear listener, because Marco's triggers might be social media or past regrets, but yours could be totally different.
That's right. Everyone has their own unique set of triggers.
So it's all about that self-awareness, recognizing what sets you off.
And once you've identified those triggers, the next step Elena suggests is challenging those negative thoughts.
Like, don't just let them run wild in your mind.
Right. Stop and ask yourself, is this thought even true? Is it helpful?
So often we just accept those negative thoughts as facts without questioning them.
It's like we're on autopilot.
Yeah, and that's where we need to hit the pause button.
Become aware of those automatic negative thought patterns and realize you have the power to interrupt them.
And then comes my favorite part, reframing.
Ooh, yeah. It's like taking those gloomy, distorted thoughts and giving them a makeover.
Exactly.
Reframing is all about shifting your perspective, finding a more balanced and helpful way of looking at a situation.
So it's not about denying challenges or pretending everything is perfect.
Right. It's about choosing a more constructive way to see things.
It's about recognizing that our initial interpretation of a situation might not be the only one or even the most accurate one.
Exactly. There are always multiple perspectives.
And that brings us to a really important point that Marco brings up.
What's that?
He's hesitant to confide in his family about his struggles with overthinking.
Oh, I see.
He worries about being judged or burdening them.
Yeah, that's a really common fear, and it can be a huge barrier to seeking support.
Absolutely.
It's important to remember, though, that vulnerability is not a weakness.
That's a strength.
Exactly. And while it's natural to fear judgment, often those closest to us are more understanding and supportive than we might think.
Right, and in Marco's case, he ends up feeling more comfortable confiding in Elena,
Okay.
who's a friend outside of his immediate family.
So it highlights the importance of finding that support system.
Whether it's family friends, a therapist, or someone else you trust.
Having someone to talk to who listens without judgment and offers support and guidance can be so valuable.
Especially when you're navigating those tricky, overthinking waters.
Absolutely. And sometimes professional help can provide additional tools and strategies that are tailored to your specific needs.
Exactly. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Right. The key is to find what feels right for you and to remember that you don't have to go through this alone.
Now we've started to uncover the nature of overthinking and some practical strategies for dealing with it. But what about those common culprits, the past and the future?
Yeah, how do we stop them from hijacking our thoughts?
That's where we'll dive in next time.
Welcome back. Before we dig into dealing with the past and the future, I think it's worth taking a closer look at reframing.
Yeah, we kind of touched on it earlier, but how does it actually work in practice?
Right. So we've identified our triggers, we've challenged those negative thought patterns, and now it's time to give them a makeover.
Like a mental makeover.
Exactly. Reframing is about consciously choosing to look at a situation from a different perspective.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that our initial interpretation, that first knee-jerk reaction,
Yeah.
that might not be the only one or even the most accurate one.
That's a good point.
Right. So, for example, instead of thinking, I messed up that presentation and now my boss thinks I'm incompetent.
It's classic negative self-talk.
Right. You might reframe it as, okay, the presentation didn't go as planned, but it's a learning opportunity. I can figure out what to improve for next time.
So you're shifting the focus from self-blame to growth.
Exactly. And you're moving from negativity to a more positive outlook.
Totally.
Our
Totally.
brains, they have this natural negativity bias. We tend to focus more on negative experiences than positive ones.
We do.
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, but reframing helps counteract that,
By actively looking for the positive.
or at least a more neutral interpretation.
So it's not about denying our feelings or, pretending everything is perfect.
Not at all.
It's about choosing to see the situation in a way that's more helpful and less likely to send us spiraling down the overthinking rabbit hole.
Exactly. And the more you practice reframing, the more it becomes a habit.
Oh, that's good.
You start to automatically challenge those negative thoughts and look for those alternative perspectives.
Like it becomes second nature. Okay, so we've got reframing in our toolkit now. Let's tackle those time-traveling thoughts.
Oh, yeah, getting stuck in the past or worrying about the future.
Those are tough ones.
They are. But Elena offers some good advice here, too. She talks about mindfulness,
Mindfulness.
which is essentially about bringing your attention to the present moment.
Okay.
So instead of replaying those past mistakes or,
No.
fast forwarding to worst case scenarios, mindfulness is about grounding yourself in the here and now.
Being present.
Exactly. And it's a powerful tool for combating overthinking because, let's be honest, the past is gone. The future hasn't happened yet.
All we have is now.
Exactly. All we truly have control over is this present moment.
But how do you actually do that? I mean, how do you train your brain to stay present when it's so used to time traveling?
Right. Well, Elena, she suggests some really simple techniques.
Really?
Oh, yeah, and they can make a big difference. One is paying attention to your senses.
My senses.
Yeah, like what do you see, hear, smell, taste, and feel right now in this moment?
Oh, I see. So instead of dwelling on that awkward conversation from yesterday or stressing about tomorrow's deadline, I might focus on the feel of my feet on the ground.
Right. Or the sound of the birds outside your window, or the taste of your coffee.
You're basically bringing your attention to the physical sensations.
Of the present moment, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Another technique is focusing on your breath.
My breath.
Yeah, just noticing the rise and fall of your chest as you inhale and exhale.
Oh, these sound a lot like meditation techniques.
They are very closely linked, actually. Mindfulness is often used as a foundation for meditation practice.
But you don't have to be a meditation expert to benefit from it.
No, not at all. Even a few minutes of conscious breathing or that sensory awareness we talked about can really help bring you back to the present moment.
Help interrupt those overthinking cycles.
Exactly. It's like creating a little bit of mental space.
Between you and those overwhelming thoughts.
Yeah. But what about dealing with the content of those thoughts? Sometimes those worries and regrets, they feel very real.
Very pressing, yeah.
Right, and that's where those skills we talked about earlier, challenging and reframing those, come back into play.
Ah,
You
okay.
can use them to really examine those thoughts, see if they hold up under scrutiny.
So if I'm caught up in a past mistake, I might ask myself, what did I learn from this experience? How can I use it to grow?
Exactly. And if you're worrying about the future, you might challenge those what if thoughts.
By asking, what evidence do I actually have to support this fear? What's the most likely outcome, really?
Right. You're bringing in some logic and reason.
Injecting a dose of rationality.
Exactly. It's about looking at the situation more objectively and considering those alternative interpretations.
And through all of this, it seems like the key is to be kinder to ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Like not beat ourselves up for overthinking,
Right.
but recognizing that it's a human experience.
A very common one.
And we've got tools to manage it.
Self-compassion is crucial.
I like that.
And when you're kind to yourself, you're more likely to be patient with the process and keep practicing those techniques.
The mindfulness and reframing.
Exactly. And also, don't forget, we don't have to go through this alone. Remember, Marco initially hesitated to confide in his family,
Right.
but he found support in Elena.
Seeking support from others, whether it's loved ones or mental health professionals, can be invaluable.
It can be, but it's tricky, right?
What do you mean?
Well, on one hand, opening up to others can provide incredible support, validation, new perspectives.
I see what you mean.
But then there's that fear of judgment, rejection, burdening them with our problems.
It's that tension between wanting support and fearing the consequences of seeking it.
Exactly. And it's totally understandable. But it starts with recognizing that vulnerability is not a weakness.
It's a strength.
Exactly. And while it's natural to fear judgment, often those closest to us are more understanding and supportive than we might think.
That's a good point.
Right. We tend to imagine those worst-case scenarios, which prevents us from taking that leap of faith.
And confiding in someone.
Right. Communication is key, though. If you're hesitant to open up to family or friends, maybe start with someone you feel extra safe with.
Like Marco did with Elena.
Exactly. Or consider talking to a mental health professional
Yeah, they can provide a neutral and confidential space.
to explore those thoughts and feelings,
It's about finding those trusted confidants.
who offer empathy, understanding, guidance without judgment.
And sometimes professional support can be incredibly beneficial,
Right.
offering those tailored strategies and tools to manage overthinking.
It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
No.
The key is to find what feels right for you and to remember you don't have to go through this alone.
And this brings us to a fascinating connection between language and overthinking.
Oh, how so?
Well, it's subtle, but it's woven into Marco and Elena's conversation.
Tell me more.
Well, they're discussing overthinking while simultaneously learning and practicing a new language.
Right.
It highlights how language itself can shape our thinking patterns.
Both positively and negatively.
Exactly. So could learning a new language actually offer us fresh perspectives on managing overthinking?
It's a thought-provoking question for sure.
It is. It's like stepping outside of your usual thought patterns and seeing the world through a different lens.
I like that analogy.
When you learn a new language, you're not just acquiring vocabulary and grammar.
You're immersing yourself in a new culture.
New ways of expressing ideas, new perspectives on the world,
It's like expanding your mental toolkit.
giving you more options for processing your thoughts and emotions.
And it raises a really interesting question. Could certain languages with their unique structures and ways of conveying meaning,
Yeah.
could they offer advantages when it comes to managing overthinking?
Like, could there be languages that are better suited for calming those mental storms?
It's fascinating to think about.
It is. And that's something we'll explore further after a quick break. So before the break, we were really getting into this idea that learning a new language could help us manage overthinking.
It's a fascinating concept, right?
It is. Like, language isn't just about communication. It shapes how we think about the world.
Yeah. It influences our perception of everything.
So by learning a new language, are we kind of rewiring our brains?
In a sense, yeah, you could say that. When you learn a new language, you're not just memorizing words and grammar. You're immersing yourself in a whole new way of thinking and expressing yourself.
It's like you're stepping outside your normal mental framework.
Yeah, and gaining a totally fresh perspective.
And I guess different languages, they emphasize different aspects of experience, right?
Absolutely. For example, some languages have very specific words for emotions, which might make it easier to identify and process those feelings.
That's so interesting. So could learning a language that emphasizes mindfulness or emotional awareness actually help someone manage overthinking?
It's definitely a possibility worth exploring. And it leads to even more questions.
Like what?
Well, could certain grammatical structures, like those that focus on the present moment, actually influence how we perceive time?
And potentially reduce our tendency to dwell on the past or worry about the future. It
Exactly.
makes me think about the whole idea of linguistic relativity.
Ah, yes. The theory that the language we speak actually influences how we think.
That's a pretty mind-blowing concept.
It is. It's complex and it's definitely debated, but it adds another layer to this idea that learning a new language could be a tool for managing overthinking.
Not a guaranteed solution, of course.
Of course not.
Hmm.
But it's a fascinating avenue to explore.
Right, it's not about finding a magic language cure,
No.
but it's about expanding our mental toolbox and, maybe gaining some new ways of understanding and managing those thought patterns.
That's a great way to put it. And even if learning a new language doesn't directly reduce overthinking, the cognitive benefits alone can be really helpful.
How so?
Well, think about it. Learning a new language strengthens our working memory, improves our attention span, and enhances our ability to multitask.
All things that could indirectly help manage overthinking. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of overthinking, what are the key takeaways you'd like our listeners to remember?
Well, first and foremost, overthinking is a common human experience. You're not alone in this, but it doesn't have to control your life. There are practical strategies you can use to manage it.
Like identifying those triggers.
Yes, identifying your personal triggers is crucial. Once you know what sets you off, you can start challenging those negative thought patterns and reframing them in a more constructive way.
And don't forget the power of mindfulness.
Right. Mindfulness techniques can be incredibly powerful for grounding yourself in the present moment and breaking free from those time-traveling thoughts that often fuel overthinking.
It's about finding that balance.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the importance of self-compassion.
Be kind to yourself.
Yes. Be kind to yourself throughout this process, and remember, you don't have to go through this alone. Seeking support from trusted friends, family, or mental health professionals can make a world of difference.
And maybe consider exploring that connection between language and thought. Could learning a new language offer you fresh perspectives and tools for understanding and managing your own overthinking tendencies?
It's a journey worth taking. Overthinking, while challenging, can also be a sign of a curious and active mind. It's about finding that balance between thought and action, between reflection and engagement, and using your mental energy in ways that serve you well.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into overthinking.
And remember, you've got the power to manage those thought